Hello and welcome to HPA-Global Insights, where we'll be interviewing experts from the dietary supplement, nutritional ingredient, and overall natural health food industry. Please like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell, and comment below. Now on with the show. Hi, welcome to the show. Today we have a great show. We're going to talk about some botanical extracts and potentially marketing them or registering them as drugs. Today to talk about this, we have a good friend, Dr. Douglas Cowman, VP Scientific Affairs at Nutrasource. Doug, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you, Jeff. It's good to see you again.
All right, excellent. So I see you got your summer shirt on there.
Yes.
Enjoying life.
It's I do live and work in South Florida, so this is our second summer of the year because we have two seasons, as you know, hot and hotter.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit more festive this afternoon since we are kind of hot today.
Awesome. No, that's it's very colorful down there, right?
Yes.
So let's jump into introduction of yourself, just if you can tell the people that haven't met you or been fortunate enough to talk to you yet, a little bit about your career, what you're doing over at Nutrasource.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Douglas Cowman, or Doug, as many people know me, and I'm a Vice President of Scientific Affairs of Nutrasource. I'm also a professor in the Dr. Kiran C. Patel College of Osteopathic Medicine at Nova Southeastern University. And I also hold an appointment within the university in the College of Psychology. So I combine the academic-oriented mindset with clinical research and service organization group to help companies achieve goals in regulated markets and understand the nuances for the regulatory, for the science, and for other things that are related to the dietary supplement, the botanical, the medical food, infant formula, foods for special use,
Sports
and
nutrition.
these related, and sport nutrition, of course, a big background of mine, and so forth. So for the sake of this, conversation, I thought, and you thought, it might be good to key in a little bit on about the botanical medical route or botanical drug route in the U.S. And why does it seem to be an underappreciated segment from companies that would that could potentially look to go that route, and from a business sense, maybe get greater return on their investment versus selling something just as a generalized botanical for quality of life or other issues.
Well, I saw this all came out of, we talked earlier about doing a video together, and like I told you, there's just so many great topics with your background that we could tackle, but you posted a message on LinkedIn with an article about botanicals as drugs, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. It really made an impact on me, because living in China for so many years, I've always been around that traditional Chinese medicine and herbal botanical medicine, and a lot of Chinese companies always asking, how do I bring my product to America? So that kind of really, I thought that was a very interesting topic. So let's talk a little bit about that and dispel maybe some of the misunderstandings about it, because I always kept hearing the same thing in industry, why people didn't go that route, because it was expensive and there was no protection and this and that. So why don't we just talk a little bit about that process? So if someone has a botanical, and kind of highlighting some of the things that you wrote down in your post as well as that article.
Thank you, Jeff. Food and Drug Administration allows companies to take what I would call an accelerated access or route to market in the pharmaceutical sector. And the specific slice of the pharmaceutical sector is botanical drugs. And why do I say that they allow this, and the opportunity here is that a traditional drug that has to undergo preclinical and then at least phases 1 through 3 on the pharmaceutical development side of testing, preclinical and then human testing and so forth, typically it takes 8 to 10 years And depending upon the drug, costs most pharmaceutical companies, 800 million to $1 billion. And on the pharmaceutical side, most companies look to recoup that investment by having a couple of blockbuster drugs. And the typical definition on the pharmaceutical side of blockbuster is that it generates at least $1 billion globally per year, individually. And there are many drugs that do multi-billions per year. So the botanical drug route, on the other hand, is not an $800 million gorilla on somebody's back, but generally, depending upon what information a company may already have, and I can go into what I mean by information. It could be, on the lower end of near $1 million to just, $3 million. You're talking less than $10 million total dollar investment to get an FDA drug approval that then can go on formulary and then be distributed no different than any other drug. The difference is educating physicians to write the prescription for your botanical drug as compared to a synthetic. So, I'll give there's currently at least 2 FDA approved botanical drugs that are on market. And there are others that are pending different processes within development. With that being said, let's just, take a step back, and I'll breathe for a minute and let you get to what your next question or idea is.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're shooting out great information. There is a lot of points to this and how do you approach it, and a lot of, like, if you take a botanical, is the active in it or the constituent in that botanical known? Is there, okay, this is the thing that's in this plant that does this. That is known sometimes, and sometimes it's not. So, for example, Chinese medicine is very traditional in that matter, where they take the entire root or the entire bark or the entire leaf or whatever part of the plant that they're using, and they boil it together with the other plants and roots that, through Chinese pharmacopoeia, balance each other out, if you will. But there's no real, and I think that's one of the big problems of TCM in modern medicine, is there's no real way to standardize a lot of those processes. And because it's a natural product, it could have rained a lot that year, and that herb or plant could have different levels than the one prior year or a drought year. So there's, I think, a lot of things uncontrolled. And in that article, there's that graph. There are things that specify that this plant it's unknown. There's hundreds of thousands of little constituents in this molecules in this plant. We don't know exactly which one is doing the trick, but it definitely is working.
Right. So, and with the botanical drug, you have to have a general idea of the mechanism of action, how it works in the human, but you don't necessarily have to have the exact molecular entity within the typical botanical, either phytochemicals that are naturally occurring, or if it's a multi-ingredient TCM, you don't have to have it as specific as you will a pharmaceutical, but you generally have to have a good understanding of the natural chemical composition. You have to identify what you do think may be the actives, and that could be a family of compounds. For example, polyphenolic compounds, which describe hundreds, but it gives a general idea. You have to characterize a little bit. You have to have controls, and what controls are is in the manufacturing process. It has to be well defined about how something might be rinsed and washed and extracted and dried. It has to be very specific. But typically with the botanical drug, you want some prior evidence of safety from human use. And with TCM, that's actually easy because the amount of TCM that's used, let's say, for example, in China. So one can follow through medical reports, hospitals, TCM, providers there, and get compilations of safety report and safety data. And then, you have to have a couple of other things to get the idea to go down the botanical drug route. Why does it appeal, or I think should appeal to a greater way? is because expedited programs exist that will allow you to get to market faster for lower cost than a traditional drug, and you can make traditional drug claims based upon your prior human use, the other safety data, and some clinical prospective data that you may need to collect in America.
Mm-hmm.
The FDA, by the way, has accepted, it's unique. Typically, for a drug to get approved in America, the FDA guidance is to any pharmaceutical company is that at least 60% of the studies or the subjects must be from the US. And that means 40% could be done outside the US.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in a recent US FDA acceptance of a cancer drug made by a Chinese company. They actually accepted all of the data from China and did not make them have to do anything in the US. And that's rare.
Oh, okay.
So traditionally, you would have to replicate at least in the US, and at least 40% of your data come from the US. I mean, 60%. So
Okay.
now 100% of the data came from a Chinese oncology drug, something for cancer. But the idea is, what I'm saying is here, that's precedent that you can use human use and safety data and outcome data from things on TCM that have been accumulated in China, and then you have to work with putting together processes for your manufacturing and do a gap and feasibility assessment to what else you need in a checkoff list to make it to the FDA botanical drug application. But I'm here to tell you that it's a much lower barrier to market than what many people think, and it's probably underappreciated.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, the problem I always saw was Chinese medicine would just ship over here, and they'd get stuck in customs because the boxes would have directions in there to take this product to cure or treat something, and it's not registered. They're trying to get on, trying to play in that gray area and be a supplement, which in a lot of cases they probably could have been a supplement if they had just changed the packaging and all the directions and changed it to a structure function claim process instead of a cure, treat, mitigate type statement.
Well, that would actually require, and this is not to, some companies that want to sell in the US may not actually be aware of what the regulations are to sell. And if they're able to get somebody to import from China, let's say, or some other country to the US and sell their products in stores or online, they may not be aware of what they're supposed to be aware of. And that's part of the educational gap that organizations like yours and others serve to help companies understand, their marketplace, not just, your business opportunity, but things that that if somebody knocks on your door, why?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing with TCM, there is, differences in the types of TCM companies. So there are some TCM companies that are very much more pharma based. They are using botanical ingredients, but they kind of, they produce their products more along a drug line, and the indications on the packaging also kind of reflect that. Whereas there are some more traditional TCM companies doing botanicals and traditional formulas. But if you read the packaging, it's going to, for most foreigners outside of China, will be dumbfounded by what it's telling you. It's saying like, this will, clear liver heat, or this will dispel wind cold from your body. It's like, well, what does that mean? And there are meanings to it. And that's where, as you mentioned before, you have to break it down into what is this thing doing to the body? And in this case, it's helping to, clear out a specific, toxin or something from the liver, or it's, there's some action that can be traced there. But the traditional prescription is like clear liver fire or something like this.
Right. And those TCM descriptions of what it means or what it's good for kind of go hand in hand with people that are trained in what that means, which is totally different than allopathic medicine and osteopathic medicine for saying wind or fire. It's more inclusive of a whole host of the whole body versus just using a systems approach, which typical allopathic medicine and osteopathic medicine generally have in common, that they use a systems approach but they define systems differently than what TCM does.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's kind of a vernacular kind of a thing on some level.
Sure.
But what I want to encourage people to understand is that regarding the botanical drug route and TCM, is that once you get a little bit of an assistance or understanding of how things need to be phrased and what anticipated benefits and to your company for that business would be, is that the opportunity again is large. And I'll tell you, for example, there are currently 18 different more traditional Chinese botanical studies going on in the US. Doesn't sound like a lot, but there are at least 18 different ones looking at TCM oriented or TCM themed interventions for everything from immunity to some nerve diseases, and which is a nice uptick and encouraging to see. And something that we do at Nutrasource is that we help companies navigate the botanical drug route and what the differences are, at least for the US and Canada, for botanical drug versus dietary supplement versus now Canada natural health product. Now, sure. Canada is a totally different animal in the sense that Health Canada allows ingredients that are registered and monographed to have claims, as long as the claims meet their bar for what you supply as substantiation. So, for us talking about like TCM, there is medicine that's even approved by as a botanical drug that really just has antiviral activity, and it's used as an antiviral. The name is funky, if you ask me. Fulizag is the name, and it is basically a green tea extract. I'm sorry. There is a Fulizag. It is an antiretroviral that's associated with as a botanical that is used for unfortunate side effects of typical HIV and AIDS related medicines, so to help to control those side effects. Whereas Verigrin is a FDA approved botanical drug that's based upon a green tea extract that is used for the treatment of genital and perianal warts. So, that it might be a niche market to somebody, but that could be $100 million in revenue.
Yeah,
because there are people that have this, and the Fulizag, if you will, the one that's approved by the FDA for diarrhea symptoms related to HIV treatment, is derived from the red sap of Croton lecheri, which is also known as sangre de grado, blood of the root. It's those are two, that I mentioned. And again, there are some studies that are being done at the University of Chicago looking at botanical medicine and effects on metabolic safety in females. Other ones, a new one that is looking at can milk thistle or silymarin isolated out of milk thistle reduce or help maintain HIV negativity amongst those people at high risk. So that one is kind of very, very interesting. There's a whole, and then there's an expansion where now the Verigran, which is being also taking a look at in postmenopausal women for does it reduce pain that they experience in the postmenopausal route. And then there's another botanical drug that's being developed that is taking a look for psoriasis based upon a TCM. So these are ones that I'm excited to say, and I'm hoping that your members and people interested would like to understand that from a business perspective and a human caring perspective, TCM offers so much help to so many people and so many opportunities But to get further accepted and explored and then accepted in the US or North America, we need some of these to be undergo these kind of botanical drug routes, which will allow a larger amount of people to experience the same
Sure.
kind of benefits as those do it in China.
Now, for Chinese TCM, a lot of the herbs, some of them are already floating around the US and have been here. I mean, if you dig deep, you can go into any of the Chinatowns, going back to the beginnings of the Shea, 1994, and probably find a lot of these formulas were already sold in America, kind of meeting that grandfathering, in terms of NDIs and stuff. But by and large, a lot of them maybe they're not mainstream. They're not found on the shelves at GNC or any of these places like that. So I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. But for example, you mentioned milk thistle. That obviously is an herb that is all over the place in America. What would happen if someone, a company did take that and go down that route and get a botanical drug approval for a milk thistle extract, and now it's a drug? What would happen to the current, like dietary supplement companies selling milk thistle? Would that affect them in any way? Or what would happen there?
I would not anticipate it necessarily affecting them, because that ingredient is then going to be used by a market that may not traditionally or wholly be looking for, or wholly getting recommended by their physicians, that botanical, whether they were seeing a licensed acupuncturist as their or a TCM oriented practitioner, or an ND. So I don't think it would really have that vast of an impact, because to go down the botanical drug route, it's kind of got to be a little bit more narrow and focused about what the use is for, where TCM itself can be, depending upon the TCM formula, might be for 5 different things, where on the botanical drug route, the way that US FDA works is typically it's one indication at a time. So you're doing one application for X, one application for Y, one application for whatever's next in the alphabet.
Okay. So throughout this whole talk, I think the thing we'd mentioned earlier before we started recording, the thing I always heard from companies or people talking about this topic over the years was always the fact that, we're not going to spend millions of dollars, to go down that route with this, because there's no way for us to protect it. I mean, there's an investment of time and money, and then at the end of the day, anyone can sell this. So that's, according to the article I read that you posted and what we've talked about, that's not the case.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that is necessarily the case. That again, depending upon where somebody's starting, there's a certain amount of materials that are needed as related to preclinical testing, as well as on the manufacturing side. Now that could cost anywhere, depending upon what material and studies and data you already have on hand, a low amount of money, and combining for the CMC and the preclinical testing, $500,000. Then, and these are ballparks. And then if you have some a couple of one or depending upon what the FDA says, you always set up what's called a pre-FDA meeting or pre-IND meeting, so that you could share the idea of what you're looking to do, what the study design is, what the pathway that you're going down with the FDA, for their feedback before you actually apply it. That's one of the things that the FDA allows. So this way, they're trying to help you not waste their time. Typically we take these meetings very seriously, and then from the advice and the writing that we get back from our handed in plan, we're able to then navigate that path. So it might be 1 study, might be 2, might be 3 max, but so you're talking about, yes, it's a 7-figure investment, but you're not talking $800 million. You're talking typically it's less than $7 to $10 million total. And some of them I've seen for $1 to $3 million, total, which might sound like a lot to people like you and I and everybody else, but on a corporate business development plan, it's not really a lot, especially if they have US subsidiaries and they're taking advantage of IRS tax codes for product development, research and product development that are available to corporations.
So it sounds like the idea is that for a synthetic or like a new chemical entity, they're starting from ground zero, compared to a botanical where, you might like already have all that data that's coming out of China. This product already exists in a market. People have taken it for years. There's a lot of safety data already available. Is that the big advantage there?
Yes, that's the big advantage. It really is.
Yeah.
Companies that have established manufacturing processes versus, your aunt doing it in the backyard from her garden. That is definitely an advantage for sure, without doubt.
Awesome. All right. So Doug, thanks for all your time and insights on this. I think it was a kind of interesting topic, and there's probably gonna be some more follow-up, and I'll maybe talk to some other companies about this in the future, because there's a lot of companies I know that want to probably go down this route potentially.
I think it's an untapped one, and I would love to see more companies explore it. Not only will many people benefit from products that can be developed this pathway, but it could be helping not only companies with their line too, but employment, well-being of many people.
Sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Doug, let's catch up on another episode sometime in the future, because I know you got tons of stuff in your chest there to talk about. So good day to you, sir. Thanks again.
All right. Have a great one. Stay healthy.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to HPA Global Insights. Please like, subscribe, and share with your colleagues. Any questions or suggestions, email us at info@uschinahpa.org. This channel is operated by US China Health Products Association, which is a nonprofit organization. Please consider joining the association and supporting its global endeavors. Your support is very much appreciated. Until next time, take care.